All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Monday leadership training call. My name is Rebecca Cafiero, and normally my dear friend, Brittany Cara, is also on this call, but she is doing a fun weekend with her two daughters. So really leading the laptop lifestyle. But I wanted to hold this call for a couple of reasons. It's because, one, I think that often it's really easy to fantasize about what a laptop lifestyle might look like and when you follow leaders or people that have been doing really well. And I just want to make it really realistic, the good, the bad, and the ugly about what is to be expected during the different phases of building a business that truly can set your life free, where you absolutely design your life. And then, of course, hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. But I want to take you through the three phases that I've seen not just for myself, but a lot of other leaders have gone through. Now, the details might change, but I think that this will give you comfort with where you're at, knowing what stage you're in and where you're going. So the first stage when you're building a laptop lifestyle with network marketing, obviously, there's other ways to do it as well. But we're talking here specifically about network marketing. It's really at stage number one, which is the building stage. You're building your laptop lifestyle. Well, and actually, let's go back first and define what does a laptop lifestyle mean. So for most of us, that means that it's where we're not chained to a desk, where we're not given hours that we have to show up at a certain time. It means that we are working for ourselves, whether we're working by ourselves or not. And it means we have the flexibility to plan our day, to plan our priorities, etc. So for example, actually, I'm going to use Gabby Alvarez. She had a job before where she worked from home. So a lot of times we say, I want to work from home. I want to work from home. She worked from home, but she was working for a company. She physically had to be on a desktop computer plugged in. Like, she couldn't go to a coffee shop. She couldn't go take a trip. She couldn't even do the job in the set hours anywhere but her home office. So this is really about not just picking your location or having a location independent business. And by the way, if you like any of these terms, feel free to put them in the chat so other people can hear them. But location independent business or an online business. But when you say home based, sometimes people don't want to be at home, especially if you have children. Sometimes you really want to get out of the house. So that's the idea of laptop lifestyle, is really just having that autonomy to create the life you design, the life that you want. So starting with stage one is building it, okay? And I want to be really honest and authentic that this is not glamorous. This is probably where a lot of you are at right now. And you're like, wow, I see my leader having all this freedom, and I see them like getting these great paychecks, even when they didn't enroll anyone last week, and it just looks really incredible. And it is, but we'll talk about the real reality of it. But you're in the stage where you are hustling. I mean, I don't like the word hustle, but it's a straight up hustle, okay? It's a stage where you are not going to build a business by sitting out at the pool and like hanging out, okay? It's just not going to happen. Most of you either have a full-time job or maybe you're a mom. You've got priorities right now that you are carving time out for. And this is the time that you are going to sacrifice to create time later. So when you understand that you're going to go through a time that's not going to be really fun, for the after effect, the more that you can embrace that, the easier it's going to be, okay? And looking at that job that you might have right now that's paying the bills, it's your gap job, is not looking at it as, oh my gosh, I so don't like this, but looking at it as, this is a loan while I am building my foundation of financial freedom. So there's no free time. There just really isn't. Now that doesn't mean that you can't, have a date night out or go out with friends at all. It just means that the time that you might have been listening to the radio or just chilling is time that you really are going to be spending in focused IPAs, which are income producing activities. So again, you're sacrificing now for later. So for me, what that looked like was, and I'll just say, if you haven't heard my story, when I started Isogenics and realized or network marketing and realized the opportunity of freeing myself from the life that I was not in love with and a life that I could not see an exit strategy from, when I realized this was my vehicle or my exit strategy, I did not think I had any extra time. I was working 60 hours plus a week, plus another anywhere from 10 to 20 hours of commuting. So basically I felt like I was working 80-hour weeks because I was usually on the phone when I was commuting. And if you would have asked me, I was like, I don't have time for my life now. I don't have time for the fun things. I don't have time for my spouse. But that was not going to change unless I made a change, okay? So I started giving up TV time for the most part. Every now and then I'd watch like a 30-minute show with my husband. But instead of watching Dancing with the Stars or The Bachelor or something, that hour to 2 hours that I would have been just sitting, vegging out, I was sitting down at my computer. And it was at 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes, and I was tired. Did I want to be following up? No. But I wanted what was on the other side. Okay. So I found every pocket. I would listen to podcasts in the car. And again, you talk to any of the multiple six-figure income earners, their story is going to sound very similar. But podcast, or I'd be on phone calls. When I would leave my house at 5:30 in the morning for my weekly meetings that were 2.5 hours away, I would call people that were in a different time zone. I'm like, let's do an accountability check-in, or let's do a strategy call. So I'd figure out ways to make that time super productive. Of course, on a headset, be safe. And I will tell you that this can be really hard on your family or friends that don't see the vision yet. You've probably gone to an event, or you probably are close to someone that you're seeing experience this. So even though it's not yet real for you, you can taste it and you can feel it and you believe that it will happen. And with other people in your family or maybe that you live with, they're not going to necessarily get it. So it's time that you want to have some tough conversations and you want to really ask that person to give you grace. So for me, it was my husband. He's like, I get home at 7:30 and you're always on a phone call. And I was like, I know, honey. So 2 things had to happen. One is I had to really give him the expectation. I said, I have to take away this time now that is our lounge time so that we have more time later. And second, I also had to really honor the time with him. I had to say, all right, I'm going to work my business from 7:30 to 10:30. I used to go to bed really late. Okay. Just disclosing that, from 7:30 to 10:30, and then from 10:30 to 11 or 11:30, that was my time with him. And if he wanted to watch a dumb TV show and wanted me to sit there with him, I would do it, or play chess or whatever we were doing. So the other thing though, is that I realized for my husband, and many of you on this call have significant others or family, I had to get really clear on what was important to him with his time. And the reality is he wanted to be greeted when he got home. If I get home 30 minutes for him, he wanted to be acknowledged. He wanted to be hugged. He wanted 5 minutes to decompress about his day. And so I realized that if he texted me when he was 30 minutes out, I could work my phone calls to make sure I had 10 to 15 minutes to devote to him when I got home. And so by doing that, it got rid of a lot of the potential resentment. So just make sure you're having those conversations and you're letting your partner know, listen, you may not get this. I understand. Ideally get them to an event. They'll get it. You may not get this, but please have faith in me that I am working towards something that's going to greatly benefit both of us. And I believe in it. I just need you to believe in me. They don't have to believe in the opportunity. They just need to believe in you and your belief. And for my husband, this was really hard. We were engaged at the time. When I was posting like transformations or posts about income, it made him really uncomfortable. And to be totally honest, it was a big issue in our relationship. And it can be if you don't honor your relationship and you don't really communicate about that. And so there were times that I had to do less than I wanted to because he wasn't yet comfortable. And then I brought him to Celebration. And like halfway through, he was texting me like, what's your next goal? How are you going to get there? What is your IPA time? So if you can get your spouse to an event, it will change their mind. Just in the same way that often when we tell a significant other or something, especially around health, they're like, no. And then they come home from work and they're like, so-and-so told me this. And you're like, I've been telling you that for the last year, but they heard it from someone else. It's very similar. So that's the first stage of building it. And you guys, when you're building it, you are going to have times you're not going to feel it's going to be worth it, or you're not going to feel that it's going to actually happen for you. Okay. And I just want to, again, be really upfront that this is going to happen. You need to know, it's just like, imagine if you were craving something, right? And there's a certain food that will satiate that craving. Okay. And this is the same thing. When you are craving that belief because you are missing it, you need to know what's going to fulfill that. Is it plugging into one of the Wednesday calls? Is it reaching out to your leader? Is it going to an event? Is it listening to a podcast? But I know for me, Peter Kelly's celebration talk, on the why, was like right to my soul. Like I could still, like, she just speaks to me. And it was what I needed to hear. It helped me decide to leave my job. But whenever I was dealing with a hard day or like someone wasn't very nice, isogenics or non-isogenics, that's what I would plug into. And it would bring me back and remind me of why I was doing this. So please find a tool, like in building stage, communicate with the people in your life that are important to you and honor the time with them, but also understand sometimes it won't be worth it and have something you can plug yourself back into for belief. Anyone good? Anyone have any questions about the building phase? This is usually when you're like, I worked 12 hours this week and I enrolled 2 people and like I earned $50 to $100. Like this does not pay off. It will not pay off on an hourly basis. You will be making less hourly in your time and effort than you are probably at another job. But just understand that, okay? The other thing during this stage, you're probably focusing a lot on enrollments. You're probably like trying to create consultants, and you're often feeling alone. You feel like you really don't have other people that are maybe running with you, or maybe you only have 1 or 2, but you're not feeling like, oh, I have a team of leaders. So that's stage 1. So again, in this stage, the most important thing is to stay constantly plugged in to events, to calls, etc. If you're not engaging in the team pages, you're probably checking out in other ways. And it is all related. It's holistic. It's you using your products. It's you plugging in. It's you sharing. Like if you're not doing it in one area, it's probably falling off in another area, right? It's just like when we're eating right, we're probably exercising and probably sleeping. And if our sleep starts to suffer, we don't work out and then we start to eat poorly. Like it's all related. Stage 2 is, let me give one more example. So for example, my husband and I were going to a wedding in Pittsburgh during this stage, and I was working towards executive. And let me decline my mother who's calling, who's jumping on an airplane right now to come to see me. During this stage, I was like hardcore building. And I told my husband, I'm like, listen, I know we're going for this wedding. Obviously I'm going to the wedding. I'm going to the events, but I was in the room every other moment, calls, enrollments, etc. Okay. Every moment. On the weekends when I was off work, I'd say, hey, go do something on Saturday. Like I need to put in 4 to 6 hours. Like that just needs to happen. That needs to happen to get to my goals. So again, I gave up a lot of that time. Phase 2 is, I call it the maintaining it or manager mode. This is typically when you're leaving a job, or you've just about replaced your income, or you're really starting to feel like you're starting to see some residual income. And it's really easy to go into manager mode. You're like, oh, I want to create my own team page, or like you start doing more of the creating stuff than the doing. You're supporting more than you're building. You're working on raising up your leaders, which is very important, but you might have stopped the focus and attention on growing your personal business, not just your leveraged business. So in manager mode, we often get really distracted by the lifestyle before it's truly built. We get some big checks, we get really excited, and we're like, oh, I can take a couple days off, and we do it. And then we notice when we check out though, our results change. And I am totally guilty of this. I was so burnt out from what I felt like working ISA full-time and my full-time plus job that when I left my corporate job, the next 3 months, I was pretty checked out. I was like working like 15, 20 hours a week. And as a result, my income didn't grow. And I'm like, wait a second, like I want to grow. So I started to set office hours for myself. So this is the time that it's really important to continue to have discipline. The difference is you're basically replacing your old job or your old commitment with Isogenics. So you still want to have office hours. You still want to have priorities. You still want to basically work it full time, which is like 30 to 40 hours a week, but you get to do it on your terms. You get to set your hours. You get to build where you want. And what that means is I had the chance to go to Australia with my husband when he was there on a work trip. And so we were in Australia, I think for 12 days. And during that time, because the time change, he would wake up early. I would wake up at like 5:30 Australian time, and I would go work out for an hour, and I'd be back at 6:30 in front of my computer, because it was, I think that was like noon, around noon, 12:30 in the US. And I would work from 6:30 to noon Australian time. I would get in 5.5 hours. I would not leave the room. I would barely get up to go pee, and I would just like crank out calls, follow-ups, etc. And then I would go from noon, the rest of the day, I'd go and sightsee. I'd go out to an amazing dinner with my husband and coworkers, and I would really enjoy my day. And that's an example. I'll answer that, Karina. That's an example of doing the do and working it, but also enjoying it and doing it on my terms. And yes, Gabby Rodriguez, Kayla Craft's podcast, she came out recently, is incredible. So if you're not following Kayla Craft, it's so good. So please do. And Karina, I didn't have my son when I started full time. So I started sharing Isogenics just about a little over 4 years ago, like 4 years and a month. And I left my full-time job. So that was June of 2014. May of 2014, I left my full-time job. December 31st, 2014. So at January 1st, 2015, I was working for myself. I got pregnant in May, had him the following February. But I will say I worked pretty part-time because I was just like relaxing. And that's fine. But at the same time, it wasn't going to give me the lifestyle that I really, really wanted. But I was able to be really intentional. I was able to say, I want to go visit my parents in Oregon a lot. So I'm going to intentionally build my team there. I'm going to raise up my leaders there. I'm going to focus on enrollment there. I'm going to go up there and do team events because it was practically free to stay there. And I could stay with my parents and go do an event. So you can be really intentional. Like Gabby, obviously, I reached out to Gabby on LinkedIn because I have a network in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas is a really easy place not only to travel, but it's also where they often have major events. So building a team in Las Vegas makes so much sense because it reduces a lot of the barriers of getting people to events, like the major events. So Gabby and Karina are in such great position for that. But I was really intentional about, hey, I know I'm going to go to Vegas 1 to 2 times a year for events. What can I do to build a local team there so that when I go, I have a local team there? And also I lived in Vegas for 5 years. But that second phase, you're doing it on your terms, but you're still working it, okay? You haven't necessarily reached financial freedom because even though you have residuals coming in, and yeah, if you took a week off, you'd still make money, you haven't necessarily built a rock solid platform. Karina, for events, what I mean is like when I go up to Oregon, for example, when I left my job, I went up to Oregon for 8 days and I did events for 6 nights in a row. So I did lunch parties. I did Super Saturdays. So different events, bringing people in, letting them see the opportunity or the products or both. I would do meetings with my team. And I was in full hardcore mode. So yeah, promoting it. Exactly. So during the day, I would be doing like my work, again, phone calls, follow-ups, etc. And at night I would do an event. So it was long weeks. It was really fun. I mean, this is fun. We get to do what we want to do. So it's fun, but it still is work. And then now it's a little different. So now I have a child. And so it looks a little different. Like I will play with him in the morning and take some calls maybe, but typically when he's napping, or maybe I'll check emails when he's awake because it's really hard to have a focused call when he's awake. And then in the evening, if I go to an event, he stays with my mom. So, but phase 2 is really, it's maintaining it and you're often in manager mode. And I don't want anyone to stay there because when you go into manager mode, when you start focusing all your business on supporting others and you don't bring fresh people in and you're not reinvigorating yourself, it's easy to lose the excitement. So it's a balance of both bringing up leaders, but consistently like re-enrolling, creating new consultants, getting yourself to executive again and again. Every time there's a reset, or every year, if you're an executive, you should work to get back to executive. And what I mean by that is don't ever fall out of executive, but work every year to create 10 new consultants, to create another executive. Don't just stop when you've got to executive or when you've created one. So, so phase 2, it feels really good, but sometimes it can feel lonely. But it does involve being able to work where you want and when you want. Just understand you're still working. You're still working, I'd say 30 hours a week. And this is right around the time at the end of this where people start to look at leverage of like hiring an assistant at your time value of your hours. So moving on to phase 3. Any questions on phase 2 of like maintaining manager mode? Please let me understand. Let me explain. Manager mode is not something you want to be in. Okay. You're going to be doing a little bit of it, but what happens is when people move from their building phase to manager mode, they typically plateau, and you don't want to plateau. And that happens when you're focusing less on prospecting, follow up, your social media, doing the do, and you're focusing more on team page or like calls like these. I mean, we obviously do these, they're important, but it's also important that I plug into calls. I don't just do calls. If that makes sense. So phase 3 is what I call leveraged leadership. And leveraged leadership is when you have gotten your flow of what your day looks like. So for Brittany, my girlfriend that we do these calls together, you guys know she works about 3 hours a day, and she's earning a 6-figure income with 3 children with no help. My life looks a little different than that. I do have a nanny now. I did not the first year, but I book myself for an 8-hour day. About 5 to 6 hours of that I'm working on isogenics, and the other time I'm working on some other things. But I booked that time in. And what the leverage means is, one, I have the leverage of having childcare help now, but I also have an assistant now. And when you reach a stage where you're earning between 100 and 150,000 a year, it's time to start thinking about hiring someone to do some of those tasks. So I have an amazing assistant, Louisa, and she does a lot of the automated stuff. So this is an acronym. I'm going to put it in here. ADD does not stand for attention deficit disorder. It stands for automate, delegate, or delete. So automate is things like leadership reports. They get pulled. There's a template. They basically just get done. The second one was delegate. And you automate it. I don't post in my group every single day. I will often go through and schedule posts for the week of stuff that I want to share. I just don't share it all the same day because I don't want to overwhelm people. Delegate is, again, maybe it's grabbing an assistant that starts out just a few hours a week. I started with 5 hours a week, and now I have someone full time. Now, does that cost money? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you look at what is the amount I'm earning per hour of work versus the assistant. And also, do I want to spend that time? Is the $20 an hour, $15 an hour, whatever someone's paying, is it worth me doing the work and making that or not paying that? Or is it worth me spending more time with my family, especially if you have children? And then lastly is delete. Are there things that maybe you're doing that you don't need to do? So for me, I found that trying to manage a lot of different social media platforms was really overwhelming, and trying to do a lot of different networking was really overwhelming. So I deleted using Bumble. Still not sure about Bumble Biz, but I stopped using Bumble. It wasn't really working for me, partly my age demographic. I stopped using an app, Peanut, though, Karina, I would definitely, for moms with young children, Peanut can be a really great app to meet other moms. It's kind of like a dating app for moms. I decided to stop doing like a lot of meetup events, and I decided to get more focused on LinkedIn, obviously Facebook and Instagram. And I'm in a networking group that's been giving me a lot of referrals. So I decided to focus the same amount of attention to a few things that were really giving me great results instead of scattering myself thin. So I deleted a few things that weren't giving me the best returns. But this phase of leverage leadership, this is what I really want to talk about, to understand those steps, because this is the phase where, yes, when I really push and I have like a week that I'm going and hardcore supporting my leaders, I absolutely have bigger weeks. But if I do nothing, my income stays the same, and it stays at a level that I can live off of. And that's the goal that everyone wants to get to, is if you walked away, it would support your lifestyle. Now, we don't want any of you to walk away, obviously, and I'm not walking away. But many of you have been part of this journey I've had over the last few months. A year and a half ago, my husband had his third cancer surgery, and I kind of planned I would take off a week. I ended up taking off an entire month because it was significantly more serious than we thought. And I didn't have to stress about the money coming in or, a boss not giving me time off. And that's what you're working towards. You're working towards, you're giving up the time now, and you're giving up some of the autonomy now to get to that. I'm leaving on vacation on Wednesday, and this, please understand, this is not me like, oh, this is so cool what I'm doing. It's understanding of, it took me a few years to get there, to be able to take off 6 weeks. Now I will still check in. I will still be working probably 2 hours a day when my son naps and checking emails. I'm just not really scheduling calls. I'm not aggressively prospecting, though I still want to hit that 10 enrollments this month so I can get that free hotel room. Give a girl a contest and she figures out how to do it. But the important thing for me is spending this time with my family, because I've set up systems. I have amazing leaders like Gabby and Mackenzie and Amanda and Adrian and Chantel, who even when I'm not there, they don't need me. I'm not that important. And that's really the goal when you get to stage 3, and I'm still not so solid in it, but is to be redundant. It's when your leaders are up on stage training. It's when your leaders are doing their own trainings. It's when your leaders are running their teams and they're not needing you to do that. That is the stage that you want to get to when you really create a lifestyle of freedom. So, any questions? I know that was a lot. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you have questions. No one? Okay, then I would like to really quickly, I want to call on everyone out here. I want to hear, What for you, getting to that stage 3, that leverage leadership, what is the thing that you are so excited about doing when you have the flexibility of time freedom and financial freedom? And we're going to start with Gabby Alvarez. Oops.
Hola.
Hola.
Say that again. What are the things?
So for me, like I knew when I was working towards this, when like I would get, when I was like, oh, you know, I really want to do this, but this is what's hard. Like what rooted me back in, for me, it was the idea of being able to travel. In my early 20s, I had a really good job that I was making great money, but I only had 2 weeks off a year. So I remember being like, okay, I'm making great money and yeah, I have a nice house, but like I felt so anchored down that like I could never leave. And I was like, when am I ever, I was like, I screwed this up. I shouldn't have bought a house. I should have just like worked and saved up and not like had any financial commitments. And then I would have been able to like take off and travel. But I couldn't because I always had to, you know, be producing, and to produce, I had to physically be in an office selling homes. So for me, that was it. It was the flexibility to travel and have the ability to work or not work from wherever I was.
So pretty much what's my like driving force? Why do I keep doing what I'm doing? Well,
Exactly.
I've been recruiting a lot of friends and I cannot wait to go travel with them. Like just have a girls trip, and, you know, do something different and be able to gift that to them as well, because this is a gift that we're sharing. So it's, you know, it's working towards the, you know, those exciting trips and the fun times, not only about money, but about experiences. So I'm all about the trips. I cannot wait to
Oh my
travel.
gosh. I cannot wait for celebration with you. I mean, it starts out small, like, and again, events. My first event, there was 4 of us in a hotel and it was so fun. It was like a girls' week and we learned, you know, last year, a year ago, and this is still on the table for whenever any of you hit 4-star, you included. If you hit 4-star, maybe it'll change to a different trip. But my deal last year is anyone who hit 4-star was an all expense paid trip to Europe. And I took Mackenzie to Europe for a week, paid by me. So I cannot wait to take you and Karina and Chantel and everyone else here on this line. But that is the most fun, is to not just be able to do what you want when you want, but to be able to, like you said, bless others with that and be able to do this with you. It literally doesn't feel like real life, but it is. You just have to create it. Awesome. All right. Karina.
There we go.
Oops, sorry, let me unmute you, Karina. There you go.
No, for me, I think the most important part is how I'm going to grow in this journey, not only mentally, but financially. I think that you mature a lot in the process. You learn a lot. And for me, what's most important, what keeps me going, is being able to be financially independent from my husband, number one. And number two, prove to myself that I can do something completely different than, I mean, it's not really completely different from what I had initially started, which was medical school. So for me, jumping into network marketing is something I never dreamed of doing ever. So this is making me step out of my box. And I think that's my biggest drive right now.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing who you thought you could be and who you are.
Exactly.
And the financial independence from a husband, I can so relate to that.
Yes, it's important for me to be able to contribute to our home and be able to have that extra cash that we can use for travel or for the kids' education. I mean, it's huge for me.
Or to buy your husband something that is a gift that he's wanted that he hasn't bought.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, sure.
Go for it, Greg.
So I think it would be really cool. I'll turn my video on. And there we go. Hello. I think what would be really cool is to spend time like getting my POTS license, helicopter POTS license, you know, learn scuba diving, just get a bunch of official certifications so I could just do a lot of cool things. I think that would be really cool. And of course, travel, you know, maybe get my POTS license in another place in the world rather than California, and helicopter license in another place. So travel while getting some cool certifications.
That's awesome. I love that. And Gabby Rodriguez has to be on mute right now, but she said for her, it's about buying a tiny house and traveling with her family. So I would encourage everyone on here. I mean, you know, you've got the 3 stages and now that you're clearing them, set goals for each of them. So it might be that stage one, it's like, hey, I want to, get that big bonus so I can go take that trip. And maybe it's taking a trip to an area that we're building in. I don't know if you guys heard, but we're going to be building in Belgium. And I'm like, I'm going to be in Belgium on Friday. You know what my goals are? I'm doing a lot of connecting in Belgium, but maybe, or Spain, that's June 28th. So maybe it's that goal is to earn the income to take a trip that is a dream trip that also lets you grow your business. But definitely just make sure to have clear goals for each and to anchor into those goals when it gets difficult. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the call. I will not see you guys next Monday. I will probably see you over the next couple weeks, but I will technically be out of office. So I look forward to seeing all of you absolutely rise and shine and grow and have an incredible June. We have this free shipping, 10 enrollments, gets you all types of goodies. So take advantage of it. There's never time like the present. And that's something at every event you realize is like, don't put it off. A month from now is not going to be a better time than putting your effort and your belief into what you're doing. And we believe in all of you. And the only thing that will stop you from being successful is yourself. So get out there and have an incredible week.